of them are programmers, one from Saudi Arabia, one from Egypt, and the other one is a professor in the American University in Sharjah. He was going to talk to us about the hackathons in the Middle East. The programmers were supposed to talk about like what problems they are facing with open source. So I will try to manage with just the basic stuff I have right now. With the papers, I need to collect it because what we are doing right now is that this is the first of 3 series of workshops. The next one is supposed to be in Berlin with the Open Knowledge Festival. And the third one is a hackathon that's supposed to be held in Doha. We're trying to investigate what are the problems with the open source in the Middle East, and like with creative thinking and brainstorming, coming up with solutions for those problems, and in the hackathons, creating the tools that can help the community overcome those problems. So, first, I wanted to ask you on the papers you have, and I need to collect it afterwards. If you can just write me, what are the 5 main stereotypes or ideas you have about the Arab blogosphere? Do you have any information about the Arab blogosphere? What are the 5 things that comes to your mind when I'm talking about it? Anything? Have you been following as journalists any blogs, any Arab media during the past 3 years?
It was a campaign on women freedom. It was very strong on Facebook, actually. There was a blog, but actually it worked through people sending their photos, stating a sentence for women freedom. But I don't remember the name of the campaign. Actually, it was in 2013, mostly, I think. Or
you think this is the one connected to harassment in Egypt, no?
Yeah, it was throughout all Arabian states. It was not only in Egypt. Perhaps it started from there.
And you followed this through a certain website or any media?
Well, I followed it mainly through Facebook, but it started as a blog. But of course, they gathered the most of followers afterwards through Facebook, and then they redirected it to the blog. Yeah, so I don't know, I can try to find it perhaps on Facebook now.
Okay, yeah. Just if you can tell me more about like what blogs or what media you're following that's talking about the Arab world, it would be very helpful if you can just write it down. Also, what are the 5 main things that comes to your mind when I'm talking about the revolutions in the Arab world, or the Arab Spring, or the unfinished revolutions? Any input about that?
My favorite one is Brown Moses.
Sorry?
My favorite one as blog is Brown Moses. I think you know it. Brown Moses blog.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, which collect everything happening in the Middle East and translate almost everything from Arab to English, and it's really helpful.
Any Arab speakers?
بحكي عربي إذا بتريد.
Oh, where? You speak Arabic, so you follow in Arabic or English?
No, usually I do in English. It's easier.
Okay, and I know there was one Egyptian here. Yeah, you're following. Arabic television. And you're a journalist?
أنا بذاكر.
You can answer in English. So.
ما بتكلمش English.
Okay. So you're studying here, journalism?
No, political sciences.
Political science. Okay, would you help me also about if you call what's happening in the Arab world, is it a revolution or movements? No? Revolutions? Would you go that they are revolutions? No? Oh, why so?
For example, I just heard about the movement with the young people from university in Morocco. It's quite interesting. There was not a revolution, not at all, not like in other, but there was this movement with involved a lot of young people from the university, just trying more freedom of expression, just pretending a different role in the life, social life.
So, for example, Egypt, is it a movement or a revolution? What's happened on the 25th of January, 2011? Revolution or movement? Okay. So, mostly, whoever was following what was happening in the Middle East, they followed it through the blogs, and especially journalists. I'm talking about journalists working in the Arabic media. And I wanted to compare this with you. We followed mostly through the blogs, except if we are in the same country. So, and not in all the times we've been able to go into the streets. So, anyone here who was working on covering anything related to the Arab world in the past 3 years? Yes?
I have been mostly following Egypt, actually, and I was there in January, actually, and also last summer we were following a lot how they were hosting Muslim Brotherhood.
How did you follow that? How did you cover that? What were the tools you're using?
Well, I used a lot of Twitter. I'm looking from there a lot of information from Egyptian activists and stuff like that. And then I have some friends in Egypt, so I get information from them as well. But mostly social media, also some mainstream media, but I think Twitter is much more useful in this case.
So there are certain names you're following on Twitter?
Yes.
Can you recall any?
Well, for example, Gigi Ibrahim, and then, well, yeah, there is so many actually I'm following, and then I have many foreign correspondents who are located in Cairo, and I'm following them as well.
And how did you choose them?
I don't know, I just somehow find them, and then I'm looking like who they are retweeting, and then this kind of social network. I mean, I have been following Egypt quite a long time, so I have just got one contact from other and so forth.
Okay, this slide, the first one, this was made in 2010, before the revolution. And it was just like a collective thinking about like, what is the blogosphere like in the Arab world? So it's really, they just, it was made by the Gulf News. It's a newspaper in the Gulf region in Kuwait, and they just like threw in all what came on their mind, regardless if it's a country or a political movement or what the blogs are talking about. So you would find Syria, Jordan, they are putting Maghreb as French speaking without mentioning the Arabs, the Arab speaking. Also the English bridge, because actually I don't know why they call it the English bridge, because most of the Arab blogosphere is talking in English. And that's why we still have a gap till now. Kuwait English, Kuwait Arab, that's the only country, maybe because they are from Kuwait, so maybe that's why they put both of them, the Muslim Brotherhood. Later on, we had, this is a kind of thing that I think one of the people that was supposed to talk to us on Skype, he made a new program, software for mobiles. It's called Ana بيتقبض عليا, or I'm being arrested. And I think the idea is not new. It was done before with the Occupy Street movement. And the thing that he was talking about, that we are still in the Middle East, we are trying to get the ideas and adapt them or Arabize them, but we don't still have new ideas that are coming from the Middle East. Not very intense. When I was asking you about the 5 things that would come to your mind when I'm talking about revolutions or movements in the Middle East, most of the media was concentrating on the political side, but I think this is one of the things that were not very stressed, especially in the Arab media. It's how people reacted after, for example, in Egypt, after the ousted, after Mubarak left. And people continued, not in political protest, but it was more like they felt that they have the power. It's not someone else who's dictating to them what to do, who's trying to tell them where to go, what to do. So they started to go in the streets and clean. Like you would find everyone, regardless of their political inclination, religion, whatever. Girls, men, from different parts of the country. And people were coming even from Upper Egypt, like they are going with their train for 15, 16 hours just to go to Maidan Tahrir and just join with the cleaning, to feel that they are doing something that is constructive in the country. And this is what I wanted to highlight when I'm talking about like the environment that might be hosting the open source in the Middle East, and especially in Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Tunis, because those are like the 4 countries that are most enthusiast about this. But in the media, I don't know if you heard, but most of the people, they know Kifaya and the 6th of April movement, and because they played a very big role in the revolution. They followed, like Kifaya followed after that. Out of it came Tamarrud, which is rebellion, and they made the ousted of Morsi on 30th of June. And Harakat Salah al-Subh, or the 7 a.m. movement, it's, again, the reply to Tamarrud, and they are supporting Morsi. And the 21 girls who were arrested and sentenced for, I don't remember, for a long time in jail. If we go back to this is one of the movements in Egypt that started at the same time with Kifaya, but they are not political, although they really affected the philosophy or the mindset in the region, especially in Egypt, because they also operated in other countries, but they were mainly in Egypt, and they called Risala. Many of them associate them to the Brotherhood, but at that time, people didn't see it this way because anyone was volunteering with them. And it really encouraged the idea that I can volunteer and I can participate and I don't have to be linked only to the government or depend on the government to do things. I don't have just to protest that this is not done. I can influence how it's done. So yeah, they started like even through the what they are the messages they are sending to the people, like نساعد فنسعد فنسعد فنسعد. This is coming from the same root in Arabic, like happiness, sad. So we help, the others are happy, and we are happy. And they started to give this thought to the people, like you have to participate. Usually, they say that one of the problems in why the open source is not really coming forward till now, although they started like I think you will find most of the gatherings, most of the movements breaching for open source in Egypt and in Tunis and other countries in the Arab world was after the World Summit for Information Society in 2005. And they tried to like try to come up with hubs and software and give this idea of openness to the people, but most of them they stopped. In the last one was in 2011, and then they started again, but this hindered most of the people, like especially for example, those who were supposed to be with us on Skype. They say it's due to the mentality or how people are enthusiastic about participating or not. If they are really giving up on the idea that they can do something, and I don't know if this is pessimistic from my opinion, and that's why I wanted to negotiate with them and wanted you to talk to them about it, is it really you think that what followed in the past, what happened in the past 3 years, would make people so pessimistic that they wouldn't participate, that right now they will not be ready to engage in something like that, in pushing towards openness, towards transparency, towards something better in the community? Do you think so? So yeah, this, for example, this is a programming language that was created in Arabic, but absolutely like so little number of people knows about it. And you will see later on, yeah, they started in 2007, and since 2008, just for 1 year, and they stopped. In Saudi Arabia, there is the University of King Fahd. They are from the universities that sponsor open source and try to push forward with that. They have, for example, they made like online campaign about open source in KSA, but you will see the last thing they did was also 2011. This is in Egypt. The open source network, but also not many people are logging on it. Tasharuk is an initiative with Open Foundation, Open Knowledge Foundation, and actually Deutsche Welle has very good input in the Arabic language. And this is closing the gap, because we have a problem with not only literacy, but even those who can write and read. They are mainly talk in Arabic. But if you will see later on, like many of the resources that you would find even from the Arab world, like Creative Commons in Egypt, their page, their information is all in English. The American University is very active in this. American University in Cairo, but they also in English. Open Space, they are in English. In Tunis, it would have a little more balance than in Egypt between the English and between the Arabic and other languages, French, for example. And they actually, like usual, they took it one more step further. They have the Pirate Party. They applied for it in 2007, and they got the license for the political party in 2012. Social media exchange is created by journalists in Egypt, and they try to translate. They didn't come up with anything from the region yet, but they are trying to translate, to fill in the gap between the languages, so they can give the information to as many people as possible. So they have moderate number of people following them. Madar is actually a more regional project. They participated from Jordan, especially from Jordan, Lebanon, and Egypt. So they have, for example, the Open Lab, and actually they are trying to produce or to make a hub for all the open source programs in Arabic and put them under one umbrella. And they have Madar TV, like concentrating on people with talents and making an open space for them. And they also organize the Cairo Video Festival. And if we are talking about the political will in the Arab world, so there are some laws that were being discussed during the past 9 or 10 years, and some of them they are getting in effect right now. But still, for some reason, that's why I wanted them to talk, is that people see this negatively. Like, for example, in Egypt, just in 15th of March, they have activated the open source software strategy. And they say that one of the objectives is supporting democratic transition, promoting digital citizenship and information society, promoting sustainable development, strengthening the national economy. But the first thing that people inquire about that is the level of transparency. Like right now, still, if I want to make a data journalism project, how am I? It's not very easy to get the data. It's not available. You cannot just go to the ministry and ask for any information you want, and you will get it. The main movement that I found still going on, despite whatever happening in their country, is the Syrian open source movement. And you will find, like, even till yesterday, they are publishing, and they do have projects. Like, for example, you would find this, and it says that you are in Syria. If you want Linux or any open source program, we can ship it to you. And they do operate inside Syria. They are not operating from outside.
Perhaps I missed something at the beginning when you started showing all the first sites about open source movement, and you said that most of them are stopped at 2011 or so. Well, I missed the why. I mean, where is the lack of support. At which level? You said some people are opposing that, but you mentioned the government, but do you mean the government is opposing that, or there is a lack of perception of the advantages even in the public opinion at the movement level? So I missed a bit the link about policy and the movement and online activities.
Okay, and I would like your input on this as well, but yeah, most of the research that was done about like the open source, and they are not really that many, they think it's economic status, because most of the people, they are like self-trained. They try to get grants, for example, and to those, I mean the people like graduates of computer science, because those are the people who are working on this. We still don't, students, yes, they learn about computer in the schools, but still the education is not that high that they learn coding, for example, in school. So most of the people who are working on open source, they are the graduates of computer science, and they graduate in a bad economic status, so they are not gonna put this effort. I'm not sure about this reason, and that's why I wanted the guy I got arrested to talk about it, because he made something for free. But he didn't put it as an open source for another reason, because he was afraid that someone will steal his work. And I think this shows a different problem, is that maybe the idea of open source, the idea behind open source is not really understood fully yet. And another reason that is mentioned usually is that, again, how people perceive the role of the government in comparison to their own role. So if there are no clear rules or laws about how the market would operate, about what is permitted or not, they will not go for it. Did you have anything on your mind about that? Like about this question, like did you imagine any certain reason?
Well, no, in general, I think that what you said before, that in order to really foster the spreading of open source, in general, one needs a spread cultural shift at all levels. And if there is no endorsement at the government level, of course, people don't make available their products in open source because they don't feel protected. And on the other side, but if there is no grassroots movements pushing for this, the government will never promote this kind of cultural shift. So it's a kind of circular relationship, and it's a cultural shift.
Actually, Mahmoud, he's working right now with Arij, the Investigative Journalism Center, and they are making something about open source, but it's open data. Maybe he can talk about that. And actually, that's one kind of the movements that is starting now again to push towards this. So maybe you have an input about that.
Yeah, actually, we are at Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, Arij. We are working on the open data, and we are focusing on collecting documents and data from the Arab region, and to put it in one platform and make it available for Arab reporters to search and to fish for stories and something. And we are focusing on basically on many areas, like following the the project of following money, because our project is a joint venture with the OCCRB, Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, and documents and data about corruption and following the assets and government spending and things related to this.
Actually, and they are starting this in Jordan. So also this can be a case that can highlight, for example, like the way the people see the king in Jordan. You think with this you can actually implement a project like that? Like there will be transparency, the people can ask the government and the king and the family in Jordan, like what's happening, and make them accountable and so on?
Actually, Jordan was the first Arab countries who released the Free Information Act, and it's still not perfectly effective, but it is in fact existed. And as we are working from Jordan, this is a regional project, and we are covering many regions. And it's going to be online, and so if we face any problem with the center or this platform operating from Jordan, for sure we can move it anywhere, especially when we have this partnership with OCCRB.
Does any one of you have an input about like a case in Europe, like with the open source, how it started, how they pushed the government, for example, to work on this? Did anyone work on that? No? Okay. So I wanted to ask you if you agree with that. Like usually, the studies that were mentioned or that we reviewed, they put those six reasons as problems in front of the open source in the Middle East. So literacy as a problem. Do you agree with that? And to what extent? Sorry, can I ask you? Mm-hmm. Do you think literacy is one of the reasons why open source is not active in the Middle East? No?
Indeed, at two levels. I mean, if we speak especially about digital literacy and specialistic digital literacy, if we imagine a world where more and more people are able to develop, to write a bit of code, and it is actually a political will in the long term, of course this is a prerequisite for the spreading of, not only the spreading, but for a useful use of open source at all levels, in developing services, both at the government level, but also more bottom-up. But literacy, in its generic terms, affects, of course, the understanding of the issue. So it depends which kind of literacy, digital, and at which level.
Actually, yes. They categorize it like the literacy. They meant how people, the number of people in the community who can read and write, and also the number of graduates who are informed about the idea. And that's why they put it number one problem. And they say there is a cultural identity crisis, and maybe it is affecting how people trust to put their own creativity. They look at whatever successful outside as, okay, that's a role model and we can just Arabize it or adapt it to our environment and bring it here, and that's it. But would this be also a main problem? I'm really looking forward for your input. Okay, and there is a knowledge gap. The knowledge gap is that even the people who are informed, they feel like they are doing a very hard job. So they don't really, they try in the beginning to teach the others, to inform the others, but then they feel like, no, they cannot work on this on their own. And for them, some of them, they say in their statements that it's not possible to work alone. It's not possible to work while the government, for example, is not really helping. It's not only about the laws, it's also about assisting them. They say also there's a problem with philosophical identity, like the philosophy, how people are seeing things or how things should be done in the country. And the political will and economic factors. But do you agree with this, with the numbering of those factors? Do you agree to how they are put, or one of them should be before the others?
I think knowledge gap is first. Knowledge, I think, can encompass almost everything. I mean, it's the way to look at at open source as a philosophy. Actually, open source is a cultural, as I said before, is a cultural shift. Is a way of meaning the creation of intellectual property and services and intelligence. So.
Is there something missing in this list? So you agree with it?
The legal framework, which is connected to the political will.
The legal framework. Yeah. Okay, and I just wanted you to give me your input now for those who are willing, or those who have any ideas or anything to send me. They can connect with me on this. So, any input, questions? Okay, thank you.